Up next, we're talking about regulation. I know it's been sprinkled in a few of the panels and the opening talks, but now we have a panel of experts who are really going to dive into this topic because it is really crucial for driving crypto adoption. So, change your seats if you need to, stretch your legs if you need to, and if you're staying, have a seat and join me in welcoming our next panel, who is going to be moderated by Hugo Coelho, Binance's Director of European Affairs. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. You've been talking a bit about regulation. I think we'll continue on that topic and take a bit of a deep dive now. Let me start by thanking Peter, Teodoro, and Armel for joining the discussion. It's a pleasure to moderate this panel. So crypto is under the spotlight of regulators. This is not new exactly, but it's sort of intensified over the past few months, I would say. In a year or so, crypto issuers and exchanges in Europe will be fully regulated, and regulators are now thinking about what to do about DeFi and really tackling the difficult issue of the decentralization. Now, regulation, as others have said this morning, is sort of a double-edged sword. You get it wrong, and it can stifle innovation. If you get it right, then it can instill confidence and support the growth of the industry. So the difficulty, obviously, is how do you strike a balance? Europe, because Europe is front-running most other jurisdictions in introducing rules for the sector, the stakes are higher here. Basically, if we get this right, we can certainly attract a big chunk of the industry, as we seem to be doing, especially in Paris, and we can set the global standard. But if we get this wrong, then there's a risk that Europe will miss the next wave of financial innovation. So this is the background for the conversation. On this note, I will invite the panelists to introduce themselves. I'll start with Peter next to me.
Thank you. I am Peter Kerstens. I'm advisor at the European Commission's Department for Financial Services, and I'm often referred to as the spiritual father of the European MiCA regulation. Now, whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, I leave in the middle. If MiCA is a success, I'm happy to be referred to as one of its instigators or one of its motivators. If it's a failure, I think it's going to be an orphan.
Teodoro?
A pleasure to be here. I'm Teodoro García. I'm a member of Spanish Parliament. 6 years ago, I discovered blockchain and never be the same. I give some conference, I study a lot, but for the last 4 years, I'm in charge of the Secretary General of the People's Party, that's the first party in Spain. And now I leave this responsibility and I want to promote the blockchain and the crypto asset market for improving the people's life.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Armel, the head of the Financial Markets and Savings unit at the French Treasury, so here in Paris. And my unit is covering the regulation of cryptos. Also, I kind of lost my voice yesterday, but I hope you can still hear me.
Well, we hear you very well, and I hope it will remain like that. And let me start with you for as long as your voice lasts. since you're also the host in a sense. So France was one of the first movers in introducing a regulatory regime for crypto, as we've heard earlier. Not only you moved fast, but you've also introduced a bespoke regime. So it was not just about extending rules for financial markets to crypto. In hindsight, what difference did that make?
Well, I think it's a very good question because we are quite proud actually that we managed to move very rapidly on that front. And one has to recognize that it was not that easy. And I think the best achievement is quite simple but still very important, is that it created this relationship between the public authorities on one side and the regulator, and the ecosystem on the other side. And the learning curve, we have to be very frank about it, was steep. Because basically we are financial markets experts on one side, or financial services experts maybe, but we are not crypto experts. And at the time, the skills within the administration was fairly limited. So we got to know each other to understand what the crypto world and the crypto community was. And also it helped to structure a little bit on basically the crypto community side, our interlocutors. Also, and it has been mentioned this morning by Minister Barrot and Sisi, but I think it's very important to say, our regulators also built up some skills, and we think it's a big advantage now that we will have a European framework, because players tell us, and basically Binance told us, it was part also why they chose Paris. It was because if you go to IMF and ACPR, they already know how to license a crypto player, and they also created relationships with other authorities worldwide, and it's very important because obviously activities of Binance are international. So I think it was a great signal to tell all the crypto players that public authorities were open to cryptos, and we wanted to do it right with our regulators having a close look at this activity, but still that Paris will be a welcoming environment.
Let me take that cue to pass the baton to Peter. So you said you're known as the intellectual father of Mika. In the previous panel, people talked a lot about the details, so I'll ask a forward-looking question. How much will Mika change the industry in 2 years when it comes into force? How will crypto have changed?
Whether the regulation will change the crypto sector, I don't really know. I tend to be of the view that we shouldn't overestimate the impact of regulation on society or on the economy. I think that there's so much dynamism and so much drive in this sector that it will determine its own future. But in coming forward with this regulation, with this proposal for this regulation, we really wanted to onboard crypto activity in the European Union, and to organize and to determine a mind shift among policymakers and regulators that blockchains and crypto have enormous potential, and that we in Europe should seize this potential. Of course, this requires legal certainty, this requires rules of the game, and we set these rules, but these rules are just a bit like traffic rules. They determine whether you have to drive on the left-hand side of the road, on the right-hand side of the road, where you have to stop, but they don't really change the cars. They may impose a speed limit, but they don't really do more than that. The design of the cars is for the industry, the car manufacturers.
I think that's a very nice metaphor. Teodoro, I would like to tap on your experience on tech policy more generally. What lessons can we glean from the experience of regulating, say, the internet? What is the read across to crypto? In particular, when is the right time for regulators to step in and to provide these rules so that they provide clarity but do not stifle innovation?
I think that we have a lot of work to do together, regulators and actors on the crypto ecosystem. But now we have to think that the role of all people who are working on crypto is to develop a self-regulation. I think that now we are in a fragmented world. Actually, we don't have a regulation, an homogeneous regulation for internet, and we are 30 years, 20 years on internet. And now we are talking about money, we are talking about investment, and that is very important for the growth of the countries, and that is why we are now here talking about regulation, because we are talking about money. So the first thing that we have to do, and that is why I think that this is a good idea from Binance to organize this event, is to self-regulate ourselves from the point of view of get safer for the investors and also for promoting the innovation. We have to think about technological regulation, not only financial regulation. And if we think about internet makes possible to send, for example, 20,000 mails in 1 minute, and that was not possible 20 years ago. Now we are open new business through crypto. Imagine a subscription of 0.05 per each. The lower cost of transaction allow us to increase the economical growth of countries and of regions. So reducing 0.1 the cost of transaction will increase by 4 times the wealth of a nation, of a region. We have to take it into account. We have to self-regulate. We have to protect investors, and also we have to promote the innovation, because we are in a global world, and if any country make a bad regulation, then will be against their citizens, because the innovation look for other countries.
So let me pick up on that to sort of take a leap forward. When we talk about MiCA, we're talking about regulating issuers and centralized service providers, centralized exchanges. But crypto, or at least a fundamental concept in crypto, is decentralization, which is totally out of scope, or hopefully totally out of scope of MiCA. I suspect most people in this room would argue that decentralization is really a condition to achieve the true potential of the blockchain technology. There's probably little point in blockchain if we don't go down the road of decentralization. But at the same time, policymakers have been struggling a lot with this concept. And in Europe, even though there's been a lot of agreement to move forward with MiCA, whenever the idea of decentralization comes on the table, there's a lot of pushback. And we've seen that with discussions on hosted wallets and similar ones. So is it that regulators do not recognize the benefits of decentralization at all? Or is it the case that in weighing the benefits and risks, they just see more risks than benefits? I will want your views. Well, we can start with Peter. It's a tricky one.
Well, I'll speak for myself. I definitely see the advantages of decentralization. And I'm not saying that decentralization should be regulated or can be regulated. If it has to be regulated, I wouldn't know today how to do it wisely. If we look at the MiCA regulation, it does not cover decentralization. So take, for example, the Bitcoin blockchain, which is a clear example of decentralization. The Bitcoin blockchain as such is not regulated. But MiCA does cover what I call DINOs, decentralization in name only. So if you're a DINO, then you may actually, or you very likely are going to be covered by MiCA. What I mean with DINOs are intermediaries who use decentralizing technologies to provide services or activities. So, to sum up, the Bitcoin blockchain is not regulated because we don't want to regulate it, and we can't regulate it because there is no person, no entity to regulate. But people who provide services towards Bitcoin, who provide wallet services, people who provide, so intermediaries who provide wallet services, people who provide intermediary services as a broker or as an exchange, those are entities that are centralized entities that you can regulate. If you have a exchange which is purely a protocol, it's only a protocol which operates within a DAO, it is extremely difficult to regulate, and up until now impossible, because regulation is always administered through persons, to entities. It are the persons and the entities that are the subject of the regulation, not the protocol or the technology. And we feel very strongly that we shouldn't regulate the technology as such.
I want to hear the opinion of the other panelists on this, but let me just ask you a practical question. Process-wise, how does a regulator think about this? What are the steps? Because, again, this is going to be presumably a big thing. And the Commission, there's many people in Brussels that have been encouraging the Commission to think about what to do about DeFi. So how do you, recognizing the limits and the problem of accountability and identifying the entities, what's the process? How do you do that?
Well, indeed, and the MiCA regulation also asks the Commission to come forward with a report on this to see if the decentralized part should be regulated and how. But before you decide to regulate something, you have to establish that there is a problem, and that can be all kinds of problems, societal problem, a financial stability problem, a market integrity problem. But first of all, you have to establish, is there a problem? And secondly, you have to demonstrate that regulation is a solution to that problem. And that's the way we think about it. So far, we do not see a financial stability problem in decentralized finance. There are some market integrity questions about decentralized finance, but purely decentralized finance is actually quite niche, it's very small. Most of it is really in the dino space. But if this problem is material and significant and should be addressed, then we'll have to think about how can we regulate this decentralized environment that's creating this problem. And for that, you will need to find a hook into that decentralized space, because you can't regulate the code. We are a society based on the rule of law, so it's not that we're into banning activities. We can't say to all Europeans, you are not allowed to engage with decentralized protocols. That's just simply not possible. So we would have to find what I would call on-ramps and off-ramps into these decentralized protocols that could be the entry points, or that could be the targets of regulation. I'm speculating here now because we haven't reached a conclusion at all that this is necessary. No. That will be something we will be looking at.
But it's reassuring to hear about the process and the steps taken. I want to hear your opinion on this, and including on the new acronym, the DINOs, if you have any views on that. So perhaps Teodoro, or...
Okay. Three things. First of all, we have to explain better. Explain better, because less than 1% of people who are now sitting on parliaments, trust me, I'm with them, less than 1% knows about decentralized finance, about all crypto ecosystem. So we have to explain it better, because for regulation, it's important to point out that the crypto assets are censorship resistant and borderless. If you don't know that the crypto assets are censorship resistant, you make mistakes regulating those type of assets. For example, we have the SWIFT system banned to Russia, and now some people are using the centralized crypto to make some transactions. So we have to take into account the characteristic of decentralized finance to do that. Now regulations are focused on centralized system, but AVE are lending more than 7,000 euro per day. This is an incredible amount of money, not euro, dollars. Because now I think that we have to make an extra effort from Europe in order to win against the dollar, or to fight, not to fight, but to get a better position with the dollar. Because if we cannot build up new stable coins, if we cannot do something like DAI or something like private stable coins, we are losing a position like Europe, like region, like countries that wants to take part of the crypto ecosystem. So that is my point of view. The top of the iceberg is that we are doing now, but we have to think about MiCA 2, the ramp, in order to create a good ecosystem for the growth of Europe. So 3 things. 1, explain better what are we doing. 2, self-regulation of the decentralized finance. Self-regulation is good for the protocols, it's good for the enterprise, and it's good for people who own crypto assets or tokens. And 3rd one, show how crypto benefit all people. That is the 3 points that I want to point out.
Armel,
well, I will try to add something smart to what was said, but a lot was said already. I think we have to be a bit candid about the fact that the concept of decentralized finance creates some nervousness on the side of regulators. Because basically the way we work is that we identify an interlocutor, and then we create some rule and we tell these people, okay, now you have to abide by the rule, and if you don't do so, I'm going to make sure I will sanction you. And obviously it's not possible with decentralized finance. So we've been quite humble, I think, and it was negotiated partly under the French presidency of the EU, and that's something we paid attention to say, this is a very new phenomenon, and as Peter said, it's also quite limited in terms of the volumes right now. So we need to take our time. We ask our very skilled colleagues of the Commission to come with a report. And also we need some international conversation around this, because even more probably for the rest of cryptos, decentralized finance is cross-border in nature, right? So we take this time, but still we need to look at it. And we also need to look at it indeed from, I would say, a more positive angle. And from the French Treasury's perspective, what we see in terms of opportunities is obviously you go faster since transactions are automated. And so probably costs could decline. And we know that for some financial services, costs remain pretty high, including in Europe. So the other thing is we still have very strong, we are polite, so we say oligopolies, right? Not to say monopolies on part of our financial system. In this regard too, we think that maybe DeFi could contribute to creating a kind of pressure on those actors, also for them to maybe innovate a bit more and propose less costly services. So there is definitely a positive angle, but we also have to be candid. It will take some time, first of all, to understand, so explain is very important, but also to find the right way to create a regulation that protects and doesn't stifle innovation, since, as always, that's the balance we try to strike.
I think that's a very reassuring message to a lot of people in the audience. So in the interest of time, let me ask you perhaps one more question. There's still time. We've seen a sharp fall in the prices of crypto before the summer. I think there were some things in this winter crisis that raised concerns to regulators. I think we've seen some sort of the dominoes falling, so there was more interconnectedness in the system than before. On the other hand, by many metrics, this crypto winter is less acute than previous winters. So which sort of suggests that the industry is consolidating, or is evolving, is maturing, sorry. How is this changing the way regulators look at the industry? I can start with you now.
Okay. So maybe to broaden a little bit the scope, I think from, at least in France, public authorities' perspective, we see some opportunities, but the jury is still out, if I talk to my minister, for example, on is crypto, Web3, all this innovation a revolution, an evolution, or more of limited impact on the rest of the economy? And so I think it's also up to you in this room to come with projects and you know, to develop your projects in a direction that will clarify a little bit this debate, that it's more than just a very limited evolution. And in that sense, the crypto winter, you know, rather confirmed the fact that at this time, at least, the interconnectedness, and Peter alluded to this already, remains very limited. Also, the volumes, the total volumes of crypto in the total volumes of financial services remain also very limited at this stage. So I would say the level of concern on our side was limited, even if where we have real concerns is for retail investors who've put their private savings massively in crypto. We know that the impact can have been quite dramatic. And that's why we strongly need a regulatory framework to make sure that people that want to enter this market and want to expose themselves are well informed and know the risks.
From the Spain point of view, and I think for the most people point of view, the crypto winter are no good for the crypto reputation, because they dive into the sense that crypto is a Ponzi scheme. Some people said that crypto is a Ponzi scheme, but once you explain what are behind crypto, what is the technology, once you explain that 30 years ago you can communicate through a network and you can send information, and now, 30 years later, you can send value. And once you have the possibility to send value, you are building up a new financial system, neutral, open, public, borderless, and censorship resistant. Once you explain that, and it's all about technology, it's not about confidence, it's all about innovation, then people change. But if you are talking every day about how you sell your bitcoins tomorrow, expensive or cheaper, you are introducing a variable that is not good for the crypto ecosystem and is not good for technology, no? So I think that we have to explain and we have to change their opinion, focus on technology, focus on the possibilities that people can develop, no? For finishing this part, I would like to say that thanks to blockchain, thanks to crypto, nowadays we can invest in enterprise like Apple from the garage, from the early stage. Mm-hmm. So internet changed the stock market. At the beginning, all people went to stock market. Now anybody are in the stock market, all are operating by mobile phones. In the future, people launch tokens, now go to the stock markets. It's my opinion.
Peter, in 30 seconds, did it change your views?
It didn't change my views, but there are many regulators who are crypto skeptics, and they see in crypto winter the evidence, the proof that this is going to end in tears, that you see this was just going to be, was a bubble. But we've had crypto winters before and it's covered. And normally, if I get my seasons right, crypto winter is followed by crypto spring, and then crypto summer, and then there'll be crypto autumn and crypto winter again. It's not crypto ice age. And I think that, but it has a very positive effect because it demonstrates also to users who can lose a lot of money if they've been uncareful, that crypto is not your free ticket to your Lamborghini or to retire early. It is an asset. It's a volatile, or they're volatile assets, present enormous opportunities, but also because of their volatility, risks. And regulation, a lot of people think that our regulation can take out volatility out of the market. That's an illusion. We do not intend to take volatility out of the market because we can't take volatility out of the market. So I think that people who were pro-crypto see winter as just a season you have to go through, and people who are anti-crypto see it as the evidence that this is going to end soon.
Well, certainly there's, after winter comes spring, as you said. Let's end with a forward-looking message, just telegraphic. As policymakers, speaking to an audience of people in the industry, speaking to the crypto community, what you want to see from them in the coming years? What innovation? What change? And we can start with you.
Well, I would like to see useful applications of blockchain and crypto. There are currently thousands and thousands of cryptos out there on the market, and most of them you sort of say, well, what's the point other than speculating? Now, if people want to speculate, that's fine by me, but they serve no useful purpose. Blockchain technology and crypto assets have enormous potential for useful applications, and I'm looking forward to seeing these useful applications coming to the market, be it in utilities, gaming, whatever.
Teodoro?
I think that blockchain is a new technology and Bitcoin is just only an application. Value is just only an application. I keep in touch with some project like Ethic Hub that use cryptocurrency to lend for agriculture who doesn't have access to bank accounts. So those type of projects that improve people's life is the type of project that I want to see. I want to see how crypto help biodiversity, help CO2 sequestration, help daily life. I think that it is possible, and I think that all the community have to work together in order to achieve.
Yeah, and finally, maybe we do hope that crypto players will have a look at the pilot regime. It has been mentioned this morning already. It's this big sandbox, basically, we hope will contribute to modernize the financial instruments chain, from settlement to custody, issuance, and blockchain could contribute probably to greatly to a modernization of how our financial markets are functioning. But there too, the jury is still out on what will come from private market players, and we do hope that it will create a lot of opportunities and yeah, new projects.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope the journey from Dinos to the Ice Age that is going to end soon was interesting, and again, thank you very much to the three of you.